an amazing rancher discovered a hidden love with a bruised face and a note that transformed ever. Jake Thompson hadn't felt so lost in years. The weight of his family's legacy hung heavy on his shoulders, a relentless pressure that crushed his chest as he stared at the sagging fence line. Each wooden post seemed to echo the disarray that marred his world, just as the ranch's finances reflected the slow decline he feared. His father's passing left not only an empty chair at the dinner table, but a looming shadow over the family's once thriving operation. With debts piling up like the unharvested hay in the field, Jake grappled with the soul-crushing reality of impending bankruptcy. As the morning sun cast golden glints across dew-kissed grass, Jake forced himself to focus. This ranch was all he had left. He trudged forward, each step weighed down by a mix of hopelessness and determination. Gazing out, he caught a glimpse of something unusual through the thicket, a dilapidated cabin, shards of sunlight glistening off its weathered wood. Curiosity wrestled with anxiety. What if it was a bad omen? Yet the urge to discover pulled him in. With every creaking board he stepped over, Jake felt the walls of expectation tightening around him, threatening to suffocate any flicker of hope. Inside, the stale air was thick with memories, abandoned dreams encapsulated in the dust that danced in the sunlight. At the furthest corner, a note caught his eye. The scrawl belonged to a woman named Lily, filled with raw emotion and vulnerability. As he deciphered her words, a kindred spirit emerged. An artist, a woman who had chosen solitude over a world that had wronged her. Here he was, trapped under the weight of responsibility and expectations. Yet she had broken free. The connection stirred something within him, an echo of shared resilience. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet, with every passing moment, guilt knotted in his stomach. Would seeking her out mean betraying his father's legacy? What if the whispers of her past were entwined with his own family secrets, threatening the very ground he stood on? The storm brewing in his heart clouded his judgment, and despite the longing that wrapped around him, Jake feared what it would mean to introduce her into his fractured world, to challenge the town's narrow view of beauty and worth. In the following days, he found himself gravitating towards her again, feeling the pull of a magnetic force he couldn't explain. As he drew closer to her layers, he wrestled with the specter of his family's surname, that it might spell jeopardy for both their fates. The more he learned, the more he felt the fracture lines of his existence deepening. Sitting together one stormy night in that forgotten cabin, the war of past and future exploded. Unspoken words lingered in the air, cutting through the raindrops that pounded the roof. Could he break free from the chains to his family? As his mind raced with thoughts, he realized the truth. Every moment spent with her drove him deeper into conflict. In the echo of the storm outside and the flickering light within, he couldn't help but wonder. Was he strong enough to confront the ghosts of his past? Or would the weight of unraveling family secrets tear them apart forever? The following morning greeted Jake with a blanket of uncertainty, the remnants of yesterday's storm casting a shadow over his thoughts. The cabin no longer felt like a sanctuary. Instead, it echoed with the voice of his father, a reminder of the expectations that had shaped his upbringing. As he stepped onto the ranch, the early sun struggled to penetrate the clouds, mirroring his internal struggle. Would it be betrayal to pursue a connection with Lily, or was it a necessary leap toward healing? As the day unfolded, Jake immersed himself in chores, trying to drown out the relentless voices in his head. Every task felt monumental, each movement a balancing act between duty and desire. Feeding the livestock, managing the irrigation, he found himself glancing toward the thicket more often than he dared to admit, his heart racing as the specter of possibility loomed closer. That evening, the weight of indecision pressed heavily on him. He ventured back to the cabin, surprisingly unwilling to maintain distance from Lily, yet terrified of the confrontation that awaited him. The wind whispered through the trees, urging him forward, an unseen hand pressing against his back. Inside once more, the air felt electric, charged with the weight of unspoken words. The note lay untouched on the table where he had left it, a tangible representation of his growing urgency. If he didn't seek her out, would he be dooming himself to a life dictated by his father's unyielding legacy? Jake ran his hands over the rough-hewn table, feeling the fibers of the wood, like the strands of his life, tangled and worn. He picked up the note, reading her words over and over, absorbing the essence of her spirit. Each stroke of her pen resonated with truth, pushing him towards introspection. She had embraced her pain and transformed it into something beautiful, while he felt paralyzed by fear. In a moment of recklessness, he made the decision. A drive to seek her out surged within him, impelling him toward action. He could not allow fear to dictate his choices any longer. Battling the doubt settled deep in his gut, he planned out his evening. He would go to the town's art gallery where, he had overheard, Lily often showcased her work. The thought of confronting a gathering crowd filled him with anxiety, yet the thought of remaining stagnant was even more unbearable. As Jake approached the gallery, the stark contrast of the bright lights enveloped him, pulling the shadows of his past behind. The vibrant colors splattered across canvases infused life into his heavily burdened heart. Each brushstroke seemed to symbolize potential, the very thing he lacked. He maneuvered through guests, each laugh and conversation seeming to mock his hesitations. Suddenly he spotted her, Lily, painting in her quiet corner, absorbed by her craft, oblivious to the world around her. The way she lost herself in the colors brought a flicker of resolution back to Jake's heart. With every step toward her, the tumult of emotion waged war inside him, exhilaration at the meeting, dread about the inevitable confrontation of their intertwined fates. Just as he was about to speak, the gallery door swung open, and the familiar voice of a local businessman echoed through the space. Jake's body stiffened, memories of his father's warnings flooding back. The man stepped forward, finding any excuse to draw attention, his intentions unclear but certainly self-serving. Jake hesitated, and in that moment, the gravity of his decision crystallized. Would he confront this man, potentially exposing his vulnerabilities, or slip back into the safety of silence? The choice loomed before him, a definitive crossroads. As he opened his mouth to speak, the uncertainty of his own voice reflected moments he hadn't yet acknowledged. Jake knew then, the time had come to face more than the fear of expressing his desires. It was time to confront the suffocating legacy of his family. The question lingered, biting at him. Would he seize the moment, or let it slip away like the fading light outside? Jake's heart thundered in his chest, the weight of years spent under his father's critical gaze trickling into the forefront of his mind. He stood at a precipice where his past collided with a future fraught with the unknown. The unfamiliar mingling of anticipation and fear pulled him to the edge, one foot hovering in the murky waters of indecision, as the other settled firmly on a path toward liberation. Lily, unaware of the inner turmoil raging in him, continued to paint, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her presence radiated a strength he both admired and envied. In the bold strokes of her brush, he saw the echoes of his own quiet aspirations, the dreams he had tucked away to honor a legacy he hadn't chosen. Each heartbeat echoed a mantra urging him to step forward, to abandon the chains of expectation. "Jake!" he finally managed to utter, his voice breaking the stillness. The word caught her attention, and she met his gaze, those vibrant eyes a reflection of his own fears and desires. The businessman faltered, momentarily distracted by her reaction as she put her brush down. He felt the tension shift in the air, a fragile, delicate fabric woven from their unspoken connection and the weight of that interruption. "Do you need something?" she asked, arching an eyebrow, and the businessman's attention snapped back to them. His eyes narrowed, evaluating the situation as if preparing to seize an opportunity. "Actually, I came to see you." The words rolled off Jake's tongue far more confidently than he felt. Hesitation flickered in Lily's expression, but he pressed on, driven by a sudden clarity. "I wanted to talk about the note." The shift in Lily's demeanor was palpable, her expression softened, curiosity and concern mingling in her gaze. The noise of the gallery faded into a backdrop as they stood suspended in time, two souls caught in a moment that could either ignite or extinguish the burgeoning connection between them. "What did you think?" she asked, her voice earnest, and he caught a glimpse of her vulnerability beneath the artistic bravado. It was an invitation to navigate the depths of what had been left unsaid. "I think you have an incredible talent," he responded, searching for the right words to encapsulate the whirlwind of emotion she sparked within him. "And I also think I've been lying to myself about what I truly want." He couldn't help but feel tethered to the nervous crowd, yet resolutely aware of the profound significance of this conversation. Jake's admission hung in the air like a fragrant promise, the risk of vulnerability intertwining closely with the possibility of something genuine. The businessman coughed, clearly impatient, trying to reinsert himself into the growing intimacy. "Excuse me, but this is not the time for personal discussions," he interjected, glaring at Jake as if challenging him to reconsider his place. For a moment, Jake was tempted to retreat, to let the man's arrogance extinguish the flicker of connection that had sparked between him and Lily. However, something within Jake snapped. He felt emboldened by the truth swirling in his chest, an awakening to his own strength and agency. "Actually," he spoke firmly, shaking off the weight of the man's expectant glare, "it's exactly the right time. I need to be honest not just with you, but with myself." His voice broke through the gallery's ambience, a declaration reverberating through the walls. The businessman shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsettled by Jake's boldness, while Lily's expression softened further, a glimmer of understanding lighting her features. Jake took a deep breath, grounding himself in the moment. For the first time in a long while, he felt the constraints of his father's expectations loosening their grip on him. "Lily, I've spent so much time feeling trapped in what I think I'm supposed to be, but I don't want to live that way anymore. I want to find out who I can really be." In that brave proclamation lurked the potential for transformation, not just in Jake, but in how he perceived love, duty, and the pursuit of happiness. Their eyes locked, and he could see her wrestling with her own reflections, her scars mirroring the uncertainties they both faced. As the moment deepened, Jake couldn't shake the looming presence of the businessman beside them, but he found a flicker of hope. Would this confrontation, this unveiling of his heart, push him closer to the truth he'd been longing for, or would it return him to the status quo? Before the answer could settle, he felt an unexpected surge of resolve coursing through him. Just then, the noise of the gallery intensified, laughter and chatter heightening the tension surrounding them like a dramatic chorus in a play. Jake gulped, suddenly aware that this confrontation marked a turning point, not merely a choice about Lily, but an assertion of his existence beyond his father's shadow. As he turned to face the businessman, everything within him screamed to assert his own identity, to publicly declare his desire to pursue a path of authenticity. Would he find the strength to confront this self-made villain, or would he allow fear to dictate his reactions yet again? The outcome rested between them, charged with potential and fraught with uncertainty. Would Jake finally seize control over his life, or remain a mere puppet to the malevolent strings of expectation? The direction of his journey teetered on the edge, and he braced himself for the inevitable storm of truth that awaited him. The moment Jake turned toward the businessman, the air around them thickened with anticipation, as if the universe held its breath. The businessman opened his mouth, perhaps to deliver a dismissive remark that would drive Jake back into his shell, but Jake was no longer ready to surrender. "Excuse me," Jake interrupted, his voice steadier than he expected. "I believe I'm entitled to express my feelings, especially in a space like this one. It's not just about business, it's about people, about art." Lily's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise dancing across her face. The businessman's brow furrowed, caught off guard by Jake's newfound assertiveness. For the first time, Jake felt a rush of exhilaration mingled with anxiety. His pulse raced, but it was infused with a sense of purpose that overrode the battle cries of doubt echoing in his mind. The businessman's posture stiffened, and Jake anticipated a verbal barrage aimed at undermining his confidence. Instead, a brief moment of silence lingered, loaded with unspoken challenges. The tension in the air was electric. It crackled and sparked between the three of them, tethered by possibilities that could weave into Jake's future. "What could you possibly know about business, young man?" the businessman finally asked, contempt dripping from his words. Jake forced himself to breathe, recognizing this question was both a challenge and an opportunity for self-assertion. I know enough to understand that pretending to be someone I'm not is damaging, both personally and professionally. Maybe we should all consider what really matters." The businessman seemed nonplussed, but a subtle shift in his stance indicated that this wasn't going to be an easy route for Jake. The moment poised precariously, anticipation threading its way through Jake's thoughts. Was he truly prepared to handle the confrontation? "I'm not trying to undermine your work," Jake continued, desperation cushioning his voice. "But I want more from my life. I want to create something real, something meaningful." Lily raised an eyebrow, intrigued, as if recognizing the tremors of change rising within Jake. Her focus was solely on him, the tumultuous noise of the gathering collapsing into an echoing void. This serendipity ignited a spark deep within him, urging him to expand the boundaries of his self-imposed limitations. "You stand here claiming authenticity, but can you truly embrace the failure that may come along with it?" the businessman challenged, his voice sharp and critical. Jake inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of that question. It felt like a cruel gauntlet thrown at his feet. Could he embrace failure? The idea alone sent shivers of apprehension coursing through him, but he also felt the stirrings of a burgeoning courage. "Yes," Jake replied, the vibrancy of the word crashing against the hostility of the businessman's presence. "Failing means I'm trying, it means I'm living, and I refuse to let fear dictate my journey any longer." With every word, Jake was peeling away layers of uncertainty that had shrouded him for years. He could almost feel the tightening of his father's iron grip loosening, inch by inch, as if light infiltrated the shadows lingering in his mind. The businessman hesitated, and in the pause, Jake glimpsed the pathways of possibilities spread before him. Would this confrontation resonate loudly enough to shatter the expectations that loomed over him? As Lily's gaze locked onto his, he sensed a shift within her, a dawning realization, perhaps, that he was willing to confront his own demons, capable of forging a new identity that breathed life into all of his creative ambitions. The tension in Jake tightened around him, charged with both expectation and fear. He knew that the first step would not guarantee success, that stepping into the light could lead to uncharted territories where disappointment thrived just as much as opportunity. But as he stood anchored in the moment, he realized that he was no longer afraid. The journey was his to claim. Just then, the businessman's expression morphed from disdain to something resembling respect, a flicker of acknowledgement of Jake's burgeoning courage. Yet as the silence stretched between them, something hung unspoken in the air. A question surged forward. Might this confrontation lead to a defining moment in Jake's life? His heart raced, and anticipation bubbled beneath the surface. If he could confront this figure, this embodiment of his past fears and present frustrations, would he finally break free? The answer loomed tantalizingly out of reach, waiting for him in the shadows. And just as the anticipation welled, a sudden shout echoed from the other side of the gallery, pulling the attention away from them and leaving Jake suspended in a whirlwind of uncertainty. Would he let this moment slip away, or would he rise to meet it, transforming not just himself, but the fundamental dynamics of his life? A sudden commotion erupted across the gallery, drawing eyes and minds away from Jake's pivotal moment. Amidst the cacophony, Jake felt as if someone had pulled the rug from beneath his feet. The businessman's gaze darted towards the source of the interruption, but Jake remained anchored, his own eyes trained on Lily. Did she sense the gravity of what had just transpired? As the noise dissipated, Jake felt the urgency pulse within him, squeezing tighter still. The instant of courage he had managed to grasp seemed precarious now, threatened by the unyielding nature of time and circumstance. He had just opened a door, a small crack through which authenticity could flood his life, but would it remain ajar? Faced with uncertainty, he realized the urgency of his next move. "Jake," Lily said softly, her voice a gentle anchor amidst the storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. "That was brave." He nodded, feeling a swell of emotion behind the compliment. It wasn't just about bravery, it was about the very act of claiming space for himself, for his voice, despite the weight of expectations pressing down on him. "Do you think it made a difference?" he asked, seeking not merely validation but insight into a newfound reality where he could forge his own identity without the imprints of others. Lily hesitated, gauging her words carefully. "It's a start, But being brave means being willing to continue, even when it's hard. You tapped into something genuine, Jake. Don't let it fade. Her observation lingered in the air between them, as profound as the very brushstrokes of an avant-garde painting hung nearby. Jake could sense a burgeoning belief within him, cultivating a tenacity that had always felt elusive. "I'm scared," he admitted, vulnerability threading into his tone. "What if I fail to follow through? I'm just one person against a sea of judgment." "Everyone starts somewhere," she replied. "Even the businessmen who claim authority had to confront their own fears at one point. Each moment is just minefields of choices and chances. You might fail, but you might also succeed beyond your wildest dreams." With each word, Jake felt an unease shift into something more empowering, a burgeoning sense of possibility. He took a breath, grounding himself in the new terrain of his emotional landscape. He was standing on the verge of profound change. It was time to confront not just those who doubted him, but also the thoughts and fears that lived rent-free in his mind. "Lily, I want to show people that I can create something meaningful, not just for me, but for others as well. I want to build." "Then start building," she encouraged, the warmth in her voice igniting ambition within him. "Find the voices, the stories, and the art that encapsulates what you feel. You have to trust yourself, but first, you must act." Instinctively, Jake ran his fingers through his hair, overwhelmed by the weight of intention and newfound determination. Thoughts raced through his mind as he mentally constructed plans, strategies ahead. But the clarity of his vision also reminded him of the fragile nature of transformative moments. "I want to pitch my ideas," he declared, a spark igniting within. "I've been hesitating, thinking I wasn't ready, but it's time to confront that fear, time to show what I can do." "Then do it," she said, visibly proud. "But remember, failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the journey." What if he could actually carve out a niche for himself? A world where he was not just the shadow of expectations, but bold in pursuit of his authentic self? The queries whirled in his mind, a tempest brewing into a storm of desire. As the silence encased them again, Jake felt a surge of clarity. He wasn't just confronting the businessman or the expectations of others. He was grappling with the reflection of his own fears. The unchartable pursuit of a dream awaited him, but a whisper of doubt echoed within. Was he truly ready to embrace this chapter of his life? In the midst of this inner cacophony, a new determination emerged, fueled by possibilities illuminating previously darkened thoughts. Just then, an idea sparked, a plan forming, as though each syllable had been carved in stone, breathing life into the latent potential within him. The atmosphere hummed with energy, and as Lily smiled at him, encouragement radiating through her gaze, Jake knew he was at a precipice. The next steps loomed dangerously forward and could lead to profound change. Would he risk everything he had by stepping forward into the unknown, or remain shackled by the expectations he longed to escape? The decision seemed poised on the edge, one that could make all the difference in his journey. And as he prepared to execute, another phrase from Lily echoed in his mind. "Act on your courage, Jake." Would he finally dare to unlock the door to the possibilities that awaited on the other side, or retreat to the comfort of the familiar? A choice loomed ahead, inked in burgeoning enthusiasm lined with uncertainty. Jake stood at the edge of his new reality, the echoes of Lily's encouragement resonating within him. He glanced around the gallery, a world awash with colors and emotions, a stark contrast to the monochrome thoughts that had plagued him for so long. The moment felt electric, charged with the possibility of change. With his mind racing and his heart pounding, he pulled out his notebook, the pages filled with half-baked ideas, raw brushes of creativity he had been too scared to paint into fruition. He flipped through them, focusing on his sketches, each representing a fragment of a deeper vision. He could hear the faint sounds of a conversation nearby, a couple enthusiastically discussing art, their vibrant voices a reminder of life happening all around him. In that instant, the noise became a relentless reminder that he wasn't just an observer anymore. He was ready to engage. He felt sweat trickle down his back as a question loomed large. What if he presented his ideas right here, right now? The swirling energy around him felt supportive, almost like a current he could step into. Tentatively, he made his way toward a small group of like-minded individuals gathered in a corner, their discussions animated but welcoming. What if they could see the vision he had? Gathering his resolve, he opened his mouth and spoke, startling himself with the confidence that colored his voice. "Hey, I'm Jake," he said, offering a nod of acknowledgement as he approached. "I've been working on some concepts that intertwine art and community. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it." The group paused, turning their attention toward him with an intrigued glint in their eyes. He felt a mixture of exhilaration and vulnerability wash over him as he laid out his thoughts. His hopes to bridge story with expression, to create an immersive experience that connected individuals to the narratives behind the art. The reaction of the crowd was a tapestry of feedback. Some raised eyebrows of skepticism mixed with threads of interest and inspiration. He seized on their curiosity, diving deeper into his ideas, and with each explanation, he could feel the threads of connection weaving between him and his newfound audience. For the first time, he felt the weight of expectation shift from his shoulders. He was no longer retreating into the shadows. He was stepping into the light, challenging himself to forge his path. What moments earlier seemed daunting, transformed into exhilarating exchanges of inspiration. But even amidst this ebullience, doubt lingered in the periphery. What if they didn't understand his vision fully? What if they dismissed him despite the fervor he had infused into his pitch? Nevertheless, as he engaged, he realized that doubt could either paralyze him or fuel his determination. He chose the latter. Failure can illuminate the path forward, he reminded himself, almost audibly, the words gripping him with tenacity. The conversation flowed, and despite the occasional critical comment, Jake felt invigorated more than discouraged. He was breaking down barriers he had built for himself. As the discussions lingered and laughter erupted from nearby interactions, Jake noted a shift happening not just in the reception of his ideas, but within himself. This newfound courage was reverberating outside him, igniting a spectrum of self-discovery and ownership. He recognized that he wasn't simply presenting ideas. He was articulating his essence and what he aspired to create, a mission spurred by authenticity rather than fear. Yet, in the recesses of his mind, doubt still lurked, whispering that acceptance was a fickle thing, that this moment could quickly turn sour. The flicker of anxiety reminded him that vulnerability was risky. He wasn't just pitching an idea, he was laying bare his dreams. But as Jake looked at the faces around him, illuminated by passion and curiosity, he felt the pang of excitement outweigh the encroaching fears. In that pivotal moment, Jake knew he had enough fire within him to continue. This would not be his last pitch nor his final attempt to connect. He would confront this unfolding journey head-on, armed with newfound belief and an unwavering desire to create. But as he wrapped up his thoughts, prepared to receive more feedback, a familiar figure approached, the businessman from earlier, looking unimpressed yet curious. Jake felt the pulse of tension flutter in his chest, and suddenly the stakes soared higher than before. "Interesting ideas," the businessman began, his expression unreadable. "But I'm curious, how do you plan to actualize these visions?" In a heartbeat, Jake realized this was his moment. Not just to defend his ideas, but to confront his most significant critic. How would he respond, and could he turn this conversation into an opportunity, or would he falter? The decision pressed heavily on him, awakening a sense that what he said next could either solidify his place in this new world, or shatter it. With every breath, he prepared to challenge not just the businessman, but the remnants of his insecurities. This was a test, a culmination of everything he had worked to confront. He stood at a crossroads, ready for whatever was about to unfold. Jake's heart raced, the businessman's unyielding gaze pinning him in place. The air grew thick, each passing second stretching like an eternity. This wasn't an ordinary question, it was a direct challenge, a moment that could either anchor his position in this evolving world or send him spiraling back into doubt. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the passion that had fueled him into this space. "To actualize these ideas," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I know collaboration is key. I envision bringing in artists of various backgrounds, creating a platform where we can share and engage with the community, and vice versa." The businessman's brow furrowed, his disbelief palpable. "And how do you plan to fund this platform? What's the draw for artists to participate?" Rough questions, Jake thought, but not unexpected. Initially, we could look into grants focused on community engagement, perhaps partnerships with local businesses that would benefit from the exposure. In the long run, if we can show tangible impacts, like increased foot traffic or community interaction, it'll be easier to attract sponsorship. Your enthusiasm is admirable, but do you really believe people will rally around an idea without knowing you can deliver? The businessman leaned in, penetrating Jake's growing confidence with doubt. A part of Jake wanted to retreat, to abandon this dialogue that felt like a duel to prove his worth. But he clenched his fists, recalling the faces of those who had shown interest in his pitch. "I believe in the power of storytelling," he countered, passion surfacing along with a sense of purpose. "Art reflects the human experience. If I can share pieces that resonate on a personal level, then I'll create engagement naturally. It's not just about the funding, it's about building a narrative that others want to be a part of." Jake could see a shift in the businessman's posture. The skepticism remained, but perhaps a flicker of curiosity was emerging. "And what makes your narrative unique? Why should I invest my time or resources in your vision?" Jake felt the little coil of tension in his stomach, questioning himself. Could he differentiate his ideas in a crowded market? He took a moment, using the silence to reflect on the essence of what he wanted to achieve. "What makes my narrative unique is my story, the challenges I've faced, the transformation I'm embodying. This isn't just art, it's the raw exploration of our shared humanity. I want to create spaces that allow vulnerability and connection. If I can share that with others, I believe they'll want to support it." As those words slipped out, Jake felt lighter. In that moment, he wasn't just a man defending his ideas. He was a storyteller revealing parts of himself that had long been hidden. The businessman's gaze intensified, and Jake braced himself for the next round. "You sound passionate, but passion doesn't deliver results. You need a strategy that is tangible, actionable. What's your next step?" Jake didn't falter. "I'll start small, organizing a series of workshops and discussion panels at first, reaching out to local artists and community leaders. I'll document the response and learn what resonates before expanding. It's a process, one I'm committed to seeing through." He saw the businessman shifting, contemplating his response. Perhaps questioning his own convictions, Jake realized. The adrenaline flooding his system transformed the pressure into motivation. This was the moment where he could redefine not just his path, but the unique contribution he could offer. "What happens if those workshops fall flat?" the businessman asked, nearly taunting him. "Then I'll analyze why and adjust. Failure is part of the journey. I'm ready for that." Jake's determination crystallized in his words. Failure didn't mean the end. It meant another opportunity to learn, and that alone was worth pursuing. The businessman nodded slowly, clearly weighing Jake's resolve. "That's a more convincing approach," he admitted, albeit begrudgingly. "But passion alone won't carry you through the challenges ahead." Jake felt a flicker of validation. "Then I'll surround myself with those who share the same drive. Together, we can build something that echoes beyond just our individual dreams." As they stood there, an understanding started to bridge the gap between them, a recognition that they were both grasping at similar threads, albeit from different angles. Jake realized this interaction was not just about the businessman's validation. It was about asserting his own place and vision within this new and intimidating realm. Before he could allow himself a moment of gratitude for this interplay, the businessman glanced around the gallery, then back at Jake. "You may have a spark, but keep your eyes open. The next person may not be so forgiving. Here, ideas flourish and die in the blink of an eye." The warning hung in the air, reminding Jake that every encounter could either fuel him or extinguish the flame he's just ignited. As the businessman walked away, Jake chose to hold on to the momentum. He was just beginning to embrace this journey, facing the looming uncertainties with fortified resolve. The waiter passed by, deftly carrying a tray of glasses filled with vibrant hues of depth, mirroring the emotions he was experiencing. He was both scared and alive with possibility. In that moment, Jake knew he needed to channel this energy to evolve beyond just a dreamer into a doer. He had a vision. Now he had to transform that vision into action. Would he dare to reach for it, amid the doubts and challenges yet to come? Just as he resolved to take the next step, he caught sight of someone in the crowd, A familiar face, one that sent a shiver down his spine. Hadn't he left this person behind him? The weight of their presence could either ground him or draw him back into a narrative he had fought hard to escape. With questions swirling in his mind, Jake's determination edged on the razor's edge of temptation and fear. Would he confront the echoes of his past, or would he forge anew without looking back? Jake's heart thundered in his chest as he recognized the familiar figure cutting through the crowd. The sharp features of Lucas Carter, someone from a tumultuous chapter in his past, jolted him. Memories rushed back, remorse and anger colliding in a maelstrom of emotions. They hadn't parted on good terms. There had been misunderstandings, accusations, and the inevitable fallout of dreams derailed. Jake clenched his jaw, forcing himself to stay rooted in the present. He couldn't afford to be pulled back into old dynamics, not now, not when he was beginning to carve out a new path. Turning away from Lucas seemed the easiest choice, but the gravitational pull of unresolved issues tethered him like an anchor. What did Lucas want? The haunting familiarity of the past gripped his throat. Jake's thoughts swirled with the implications of re-engaging with someone who had once represented failure, a reflection of a time when he felt lost. After what felt like an eternity, curiosity overcame hesitation. Jacob's resolve transformed into action as he ambled toward the figure that had loomed over him for too long. Lucas stood in the gallery's light, casting a shadow on Jake's past while radiating strength that Jake had always admired. He braced himself for a confrontation, unsure if he was ready to hear the words that lingered between them. "Jake," Lucas began, almost hesitant, as though testing the waters of a broken bridge. "It's been a while." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of history. "Yeah, it has," Jake replied, feeling both vulnerable and empowered by the exchange. "What brings you here?" "I saw the gallery was hosting something new. I wanted to support artists, began following a few online. Never thought I'd actually run into you," Lucas admitted, his eyes flickering with something unspoken. "How have you been?" Jake's instincts flared, aware that Lucas always had a knack for folding doubt into compliments. He wouldn't fall for it. "This isn't about me. I'm focused on what I'm building now, stepping into something different," he said, his tone even but firm. Yet, as he spoke, doubt bubbled beneath the surface. Was he really as committed to growth as he claimed? "Building something important, I can tell," Lucas said, his voice steady, almost encouraging. "You always had a spark in you, even when we—" The memories threatened to overwhelm him, the arguments, the bitterness. "Those years are behind me. I'm not here to revisit that," Jake interrupted, forcing a calmness that felt like armor. "I get that," Lucas nodded, his depth of understanding disarming. "But maybe we could both learn something from the past. I have regrets too. I'm not the same person I was." Jake swallowed the surge of emotions that threatened to pull him back. He had fought hard to shed the insecurities that Lucas used to bring out in him. Did he dare to explore this confrontation further? Could he trust Lucas, or would it reignite a cycle of judgment and pain he desperately sought to escape? "What are you proposing, Lucas?" Jake challenged, piercing through the veil of uncertainty around them. "You've got some nerve to show up after everything." "I know," Lucas conceded. "But have you ever considered that connecting with those who once hurt us can sometimes catalyze our growth? I want to help you, Jake. My experience could be a resource if you're open to it." Jake's thoughts raced. Connecting with Lucas could either be a profound opportunity or a disastrous misstep. He felt a flicker of hope intertwined with anxiety. Perhaps together they could bridge the chasms created in their past. "I need to think about this," Jake said cautiously, aware that he was standing at a crossroads, not merely with Lucas but also within himself. Would he risk exposing himself to potential further hurt in the hope of growth? "Fair enough," Lucas replied, a hint of sadness threading through his voice. "But don't wait too long. Sometimes opportunities slip away without a whisper." As Lucas walked away, those parting words reverberated in Jake's mind. Was he ready to confront this complexity of emotions that resurfaced, or would he allow it to slip back into obscurity? The challenge ahead was more than just a dialogue with an old acquaintance. It was a reckoning with his own ambitions, insecurities, and the necessity of facing the ghosts that lingered unaddressed. Jake's heart raced again, not from fear but from a sense of urgency, to confront both his past and future choices. He had a vision to fulfill, and maybe, just maybe, Lucas could play a part in shaping it. Taking a deep breath, Jake knew this moment was pivotal. The next step was clearer. He had to decide how to navigate the complexities ahead. Would he rise above the fear and embrace this unexpected alliance, or retreat into the safety of his cocoon? As he pondered his next move, the vibrant sounds of the gallery began to fade into a distant buzz. The energy around him felt electric and suffocating all at once. Jake wasn't just building a project, he was reconstructing himself. Then from the corner of his eye, he caught sight of an artist preparing a piece that seemed to encapsulate everything he felt. Tension, potential, and unresolved conflicts poised delicately on the edge of creation. A wave of determination surged within him. It was not just about confronting Lucas but embracing the chaotic narratives of his life, how they could intertwine to form something uniquely transformative. What revelations awaited him as he forged deeper into this artistic journey? Would he discover not just the art around him, but the art of navigating his own complexities, unearthing truths he had long buried? Jake stepped further into the gallery, the array of art pieces surrounding him echoing his internal struggle. Each canvas, each sculpture seemed to stare back, prompting him to unlock emotions he had hidden away. It was a powerful reminder that art had the potential to transcend pain, to weave beauty from chaos, a theme that had defined his recent work. Yet today, the presence of Lucas stirred a tempest within him, colliding the worlds of his past and present. He approached the nearest piece, a vibrant portrayal of a fractured landscape. It resonated with the turmoil he felt inside. The artist had brilliantly captured the essence of destruction and renewal, a perfect metaphor for his journey. As he studied the details, the intensity of the colors breathed new life into him. Was this confrontation with Lucas merely a distraction, or could it serve a purpose? He grappled with the question, toggling between the panic of revisiting painful memories and the potential growth that awaited. This internal conflict mirrored the very undertones of the artwork around him, sparking a realization. Directly facing discomfort could yield unexpected gifts. Jake mentally pushed himself to the edge of his own canvas, imagining how he could transform his past struggles into something tangible. He felt compelled to confront not just Lucas, but the source of his previous insecurities. The thought was daunting. He had built a fragile fortress around himself, and now he was considering dropping his defenses. What if he faltered? What if re-engaging with Lucas reopened old wounds? He caught sight of Lucas at the counter, his shoulders squared, framing a stance that radiated quiet confidence. Watching him, Jake recalled all the reasons they had fallen apart, infighting over creative visions, undermining each other's aspirations. Yet, as he shifted his gaze to the pieces around, he scrutinized Lucas anew, viewing him not as an adversary but potentially as a collaborator. Could vulnerability with old wounds foster unexpected growth, healing, and perhaps even transformation? This prospect ignited a sense of bravery in him. He walked towards Lucas with a steadiness he had not felt moments earlier. As he approached, Jake deliberated on how to re-establish the ground between them, how to pivot their tense history into a dialogue of understanding. "Lucas," Jake began, feeling the weight of his own voice, "I've been thinking about what you said earlier. We both went through a lot, and it's clear we've changed. Maybe there's a way for us to—" "I'm glad to hear that," Lucas interrupted, his gaze unwavering, thoughtful. "Change is one thing, but acting on it is another. What do you envision?" Jake took a breath, the challenge of articulating his thoughts both exhilarating and unnerving. This was his moment to redefine the terms between them. "I envision a partnership. We can build from where we left off, not as rivals, but as individuals reshaping our artistic legacies." The admission hung in the air, the implication of their past weighing against the allure of a shared future. Lucas's expression softened, perhaps uncovering layers of mutual regret too long intertwined. "What if we used our combined experiences to create something innovative, something that reflects both our journeys?" The prospect sent a surge of warmth through Jake. The hesitation that initially gripped him began to dissipate. This wasn't just about changing their relationship, it felt like an opportunity to evolve personally and professionally. It was a pivotal chance to merge disparate narratives into a cohesive vision, transforming past anger and resentment into creative synergy. But lurking beneath Jake's resolve was a gnawing fear. What if Lucas's vision conflicted with his own? What if old habits emerged, and their collaboration unraveled the very fabric of his growth? He wrestled with the uncertainty of navigating back into a partnership that had once caused him considerable pain. "If we're doing this, we must establish clear boundaries," Jake said, the conviction in his voice firming. "We have to communicate, honestly. Past grievances can't resurface. They've done enough damage." "I agree," Lucas replied, his tone earnest. "The art world can be brutal. We both know how betrayal feels. But if we approach this as equals, we can transform that shared pain into something powerful." Jake nodded, feeling the weight of the commitment he was making. Each word felt like a stroke of paint on a canvas, bold and deliberate. "Let's start small," he suggested, his mind racing with possibilities. "We can begin by working on a joint project about transformation. It could embody our experiences, highlighting growth from adversity." As excitement surged, Jake realized he was no longer merely a reflection of his past. He was becoming an architect of his present and future. This pivot felt electric, a challenge to build connections from broken foundations. With newfound determination, Jake envisioned their collaboration. He could explore the depths of each other's artistry, confront their shared history, and challenge the specters that loomed over them. This newfound potential ignited creativity he hadn't felt in a long time. But would their combined voices harmonize or collide? Could they truly face the artistic and emotional challenges ahead without reverting to their past selves? The magnitude of the venture loomed, not just as an artistic endeavor, but as a profound personal journey. As they exchanged ideas, a flicker of hope blossomed, yet the stakes felt higher than ever. "Let's do it," Jake said, his conviction sharpening. "It's time to face what's been lingering in the shadows." And in that moment, he knew that the real challenge wasn't just the collaboration itself. It was navigating the delicate dance of self-discovery intertwined with the complex fabric of their shared past. As he glanced at Lucas, a notion sparked. Perhaps creating together was the key to unraveling their interwoven dilemmas. Would they emerge transformed, or was a darker turbulence hidden beneath? With determination radiating from within, Jake took a step forward, the tension between him and Lucas now charged with possibility rather than animosity. He had long grappled with the heaviness of expectation, the specter of his father's legacy threatening to stifle him. Yet, here he was, standing resolute in the face of his past, poised to create a new narrative. "Let's set some ground rules," Jake began, his voice steady. "If we're going to do this, transparency must be our priority. We need to be open about our ideas and expectations." The weight of his words pressed heavily, but they marked a critical juncture in his journey. He was choosing collaboration over conflict. Lucas nodded, a flicker of promise sparking in his eyes. "No hidden agendas," he affirmed, his tone unexpectedly warm. "This is about combining our strengths, learning from where we went wrong." Jake felt liberated. They were not just allies facing external judgment. They were two creators shaping their paths, deeply aware of their complexities. Each idea sparked a shift in the air around them, altering the very essence of their past competition into a shared willingness to evolve. As the conversation deepened, they began exchanging old sketches and fragmented visions, each presenting innovative ideas that had emerged from their separate journeys. Jake laid bare his aspiration to foster community connections and activate emotional engagement through art. Lucas offered insights into layers of meaning that his experiences could add to their project, incorporating their past challenges as stepping stones to something significant. With newfound momentum, Jake felt the threads of his life weaving tightly together. He was no longer reticent about expressing his visions. Each shared insight bolstered his confidence and reminded him of the growth he had achieved. Where once he saw shadows, he now saw potential, a space to cultivate their collective resilience through creativity. "Let's create a visual narrative," Jake suggested, his excitement bubbling over. "One that reflects the trials we've experienced, capturing our struggles and victories. We can both share our stories through art." Lucas's eyes sparkled with recognition. "That could resonate with many people. Showing vulnerability makes us relatable." it could be a beacon of hope for others. With each conversation, Jake felt a sense of liberation forming, an exhilarating release of what had long restrained him. The ghosts of their past roles as rivals began to dissipate. Each collaboration turned into a step toward healing, crafting a shared identity that transcended bitterness. Months unfolded as they diligently worked on their project, nurturing a deep-rooted friendship along the way. They organized workshops that invited local artists to share their own narratives, sparking conversations about struggle and redemption. Echoes of laughter and creativity soon filled the gallery, the vibrant atmosphere representing new connections and opportunities born from their entwined histories. The pivotal night arrived, an exhibition showcasing their collaborative work. The gallery was alight with vibrant creations, stories blending together in an emotional tapestry that celebrated resilience, struggle, and growth. Jake stood side by side with Lucas as attendees began to pour in, energized by the atmosphere. Jake's heart swelled as he recognized the moment for what it truly was, his journey from a legacy defined by duty to one crafted through shared creativity. He felt solid confidence coursing through his veins, grounded by the realization that he had chosen to confront his fears and redefine them into something far greater than he had imagined. Then came the moment of recognition. Influential members of the community approached, expressing how deeply they resonated with the pieces, speaking about the stories on display touching their own experiences. Applause erupted for Lucas and Jake, a clear declaration of their success. Jake understood that they had created more than an exhibition. They had birthed a movement toward understanding and healing. Looking out at the crowd, Jake felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him, each nod and smile serving as a validation of the transformative journey they had undertaken. He had busted through the confines of family expectations, strengthened himself through connection, and built a firm place within the art world. As he glanced sideways at Lucas, immersed in dialogue with another attendee, he felt grateful. They had fashioned a robust partnership, one born from shared vulnerability and aimed at mutual growth. Jake realized that he had not only achieved creative goals, but had manifested a new identity, one that embraced kindness, openness, and collaboration. At that moment, standing in the spotlight of their unique narrative, Jake Thompson understood what it meant to conquer fears, craft authenticity from struggle, and establish his position in a space where art thrived alongside personal fulfillment. True growth had transpired, and as he watched the attendees engage with the work they had both poured their souls into, he recognized the power of transformation in the world around him and within himself. This was only the beginning. Now, as a new chapter awaited, the fire of ambition crackled warmly in his chest. Would they continue to cultivate this newfound dynamic, crafting stories that would nourish others as they had nourished each other? Jake firmly believed in their potential to innovate, to heal, and to narrate the vibrant tapestry of their lives. Together, the journey would undoubtedly have its challenges, but he was equipped with the strength and clarity that came from full acceptance of his past. He could face whatever came next with confidence, knowing where he had been and how far he had come. One thing was clear. Jake was no longer a servant of legacy. He was an artist, a creator of his own destiny, passionate about forging connections that inspired transformation. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss out on the next powerful series that will not only inspire but change your perspective. Leave a like now to support the content you love, making sure it reaches everyone who needs a boost of inspiration. Comment below with your reactions to Jake's incredible journey and share your own stories of transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who you think need to witness this transformative conclusion, because now is the time to spread the essence of growth and resilience. Don't wait even one more second to support this powerful movement.